Hi, I'm Andy Miocha and you are watching AnewZ. Here are the headlines. Israel and Iran continue attacking each other as leaders warn of further retaliation. Donald Trump suggests Tehran seeks to de-escalate. Foreign nationals cross the Iran-Azerbaijan border, fleeing the conflict in the Middle East. Thank you for tuning in. The Israeli-Iranian conflict is in its fourth day, with the two sides still exchanging attacks. More than 200 people have been killed in Iran since Friday, and at least 10 in Israel overnight.
The latest Israeli strikes on Tehran have killed Iran's chief intelligence officer and his deputy, in what Israel is calling a continuation of Operation Rising Lion. More than 220 people have been killed in Iran since the start of Israeli strikes on Friday. Iran has hit back with drones and ballistic missiles since then. Several people were injured in the Israeli city of Haifa, and at least 10 people have been killed in strikes overnight. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister says this is about stopping Iran's nuclear ambitions. He says intel shows Iran was on the verge of weaponizing uranium.
We can't have the world's most dangerous regime have the world's most dangerous weapons. We're protecting ourselves, but by doing so, we're protecting many others. The intel we got and we shared with the United States was absolutely clear. Was absolutely clear that they were working in a secret plan to weaponize the uranium. They were marching very quickly. They would achieve a test device and possibly an initial device within months, and certainly less than a year.
Iran says it won't negotiate under fire.
We are by no means seeking to expand the war, but naturally, as our army, our powerful IRGC, and our dear people have shown, appropriate responses have been given so far. The more they try to escalate, naturally, the responses will become tougher and more severe.
Iran's military says the Palestinian-occupied territories are no longer safe for Israelis and urged residents of Israel to leave the vicinity of vital areas for their safety.
We
currently possess a complete database of all your sensitive and critical locations and vital points. Know that staying in underground shelters will not provide you with security.
Meanwhile, leaders of the G7 are meeting in Canada from Monday, with the escalating Israel-Iran conflict expected to top the agenda. With no ceasefire in sight and both countries vowing to press on, the region remains on edge.
We now go to Tel Aviv and our Trent Murray for the details from the ground.
The latest estimates from the Israel Defense Force is that Iran has fired some 350 ballistic missiles at Israel since Friday. They are saying that the vast majority of them have been intercepted, but there are still a number that have clearly breached the defences. We are seeing strikes continue to hit both Tel Aviv and Haifa, two of the country's biggest cities. In the latest barrage that we saw around 4:30 a.m. Monday morning here, we know that the eastern suburbs of Tel Aviv were hit, significant destruction to homes and apartment buildings there. A similar picture in the far north, the key port city of Haifa, Israel's third largest city. Now, as we go into the evening here, it is expected that we could see more barrages of these missiles. Certainly in the past few days, it has been at night time that the Iranians have chose to fire off these barrages. People here are being told to continue to keep a close eye on their phone for those emergency alerts and to also know where their nearest shelter is. Of all of the casualties that we have seen, 24 in total since this war began, 22 of them have been people that were not inside of their shelter. So the Home Command Service here is stressing the importance of people following the advice, getting to their nearest safe room in order to make sure that they are not impacted significantly by these strikes. But of course, what we also know is that in many ways the Israelis are gearing up for this to continue for some time. Israel's national security advisor has warned that Iran still has thousands of ballistic missiles in its stockpile. They've also extended the state of emergency all the way to the end of this month. Trent Murray for AnewZ, Tel Aviv.
Thousands have been left stranded in Israel after Friday's Israeli strikes on Iran that led to continuous missile fire exchanges since. Flights have been cancelled and cities are under lockdown.
Tourists in Jerusalem have been caught off guard by Israel's attack on Iranian nuclear facilities since Friday. The escalation has brought life in both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to a complete standstill. What began as brief holidays has turned into indefinite stays for thousands of foreign visitors. With Israel's airspace closed and flights cancelled until further notice, an estimated 40,000 tourists are now stranded in the country.
Very new experience for me personally, being in America. And it is scary to hear, missiles being intercepted, to feel the concussive blast, even though it's up in the sky, and to have to take your son and your father and go down to a bomb shelter, which is just something you don't even have to consider in America, at least not since the 60s. So it makes me feel uneasy. I'm very anxious to get back home.
Some are now looking to neighbouring countries as alternative exit routes.
We're looking for alternative places to stay because it may be a lengthy one. And so looking for like kitchenettes, some place to kind of reduce some of our expenses. And also checking on, of course, flight schedules, perhaps out of Jordan, if possible. And because it may be a while before Israeli airports open up.
The streets of Jerusalem have been deserted. The old city is under tight restrictions, with limited access to residents and sites such as the Al-Aqsa Mosque and Western Wall largely emptied. Locals describe the city's conditions in a total deterioration ever since the Gaza conflict. But now, with Iran firing missiles into Jerusalem and directly targeting Tel Aviv, growing concerns the conflict is far from over.
I was supposed to fly back tomorrow, but now I don't know when the airport going to be reopen even. And also I want to stay until I see it's more safe, it's calm, because my kid's here. So I want to see everything is good, then I go back. Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know.
Israel's tourism ministry has launched a round-the-clock virtual help desk to support foreign nationals. Until then, travellers remain in limbo, far from home and unsure of what comes next.
Tehran said it will limit its cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency, citing its silence on Israel's attacks on Iran's nuclear sites. Our Turaj Shiralilu has more on that in Tehran.
Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister for Legal Affairs, Kazem, said the Islamic Republic will no longer continue its existing ties with the IAEA, blasting it for failing to condemn in time Israel's Friday attacks on Iran's facilities, which are under supervision of the agency. The Board of Governors of the UN Nuclear Watchdog holds its emergency meeting today on Israel's targeting of Iran sites. In a letter to the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, Iran has condemned Israel's attacks as violation of its territory and international norms and promised to retaliate, citing Article 51 of the UN Charter. Following Israel's continued strikes against Iran's military and civilian targets, including the Natanz and Fordow enrichment sites, Iran has retaliated by firing hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles at Israel. Gharibabadi warned that if the snapback mechanism on reinstallation of the UN nuclear sanctions is activated, Iran will withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. Last Thursday, and on the eve of the Israeli attacks, Tehran reacted immediately and strongly to a resolution by the IAEA Board of Governors, saying it will launch a new nuclear enrichment center and will also upgrade an existing facility with advanced centrifuges. The IAEA Board resolution declared Iran in breach of its non-proliferation obligations, which Iran rejected categorically. It was proposed by the United States and the European Troika of Germany, France, and the UK. Iran also postponed its indirect talks with the US, which were scheduled to be held last Sunday in Oman, and said it was meaningless to negotiate while Washington was supporting Israel's invasion by the US-made arms. IranIsraeli reporting for AnewZ TV, Tehran.
Fuel shortages, fear and frustration. That's the reality for many in the Iranian capital as residents of Tehran queue for hours at gas stations amid continued Israeli airstrikes.
In the Iranian capital, scenes of urgency and uncertainty. Cars and motorcycles stretch around the block as residents scramble to fill up before the next Israeli strike.
People are worried, and most of the petrol stations are crowded because people are planning to get out of the city.
Some are trying to stay calm, even if they are unsure of what lies ahead.
I don't believe residential areas were hit. I'm generally relaxed. I'm not sure what's exactly happening.
But the growing queues and fuel rations are making it harder for many to move.
People are certainly worried. It's not a good situation. Petrol stations are not providing the amount we need. A car needs 40 to 50 litres of fuel, but they're only selling 20 litres, and then you have to queue up again. And most people are planning to leave the city, or they have other engagements to attend. But everyone is stuck here, as you can see.
And for those thinking of sheltering in place, options are limited.
We don't have access to a shelter. There are no shelters in the whole city. I don't think there are any places people can go to in an emergency.
As missiles continue to fly over the weekend, Tehran is bracing for what may come next, with no clear end in sight.
Global oil markets are on edge after another round of military escalation between Israel and Iran. The latest fire exchanges have pushed oil prices higher, with concerns mounting over the security of critical energy routes. Brent crude jumped 7% over the weekend and remains volatile. The cost of crude oil affects everything from how much it costs to fill up your car to the price of food at the supermarket. European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen said Israel has a right to defend itself against Iran, but stressed that a diplomatic solution was the best option in the long term to address Iran's nuclear program. Speaking to reporters ahead of the G7 summit in Canada, von der Leyen said she had spoken with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the situation.
I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. I reiterated Europe's commitment to peace and stability in the Middle East. In this context, Israel has the right to defend itself. Iran is the principal source of regional instability, and we've always been very clear. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. We have voiced our strong concerns over Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. A diplomatic solution remains the best way in the long run to address concerns about Iran's nuclear program. And Europe remains committed to finding a lasting solution through a negotiated deal.
France has ordered the shutdown of 4 Israeli defense companies' stands at the Paris Air Show, citing the display of offensive weapons.
France has shut down the 4 main Israeli company stands at the Paris Air Show for apparently displaying bombs and other offensive weapons in a move condemned by Israel that highlights the growing tensions between the traditional allies. The stands were being used by Elbit Systems, Rafael, IAEA and UVision.
Beyond these walls is the display that was shut down by the French government. Half an hour ago, one of our employees wrote on these walls that behind them there are the best air defense systems in the world, used by many countries, and also in our war against Iran nowadays. She was consequently removed from the show by the French government, and what she wrote was covered on this wall. What she wrote was covered by the French government. I guess this is a fine display of democracy by the French.
Smaller Israeli stands without hardware and the Israeli Ministry of Defense pavilion remain open. Israel's Defense Ministry denounced the move as outrageous and unprecedented, accusing France of political and commercial bias aimed at disadvantaging Israeli firms. The overnight erection of black walls around the Israeli pavilions has been viewed as symbolic segregation. Executives from IAEA and Elbit liken the act to historical discrimination. IAEA's CEO, Boaz Levy, referenced the dark days when Jews were segmented from European society, while Elbit's Mashar Sasson suggested the move aimed to suppress competition. If you cannot beat them in technology, just hide them. This dispute comes amid a broader cooling in French-Israeli relations. French President Macron has grown more critical of Prime Minister Netanyahu over Israeli operations in Gaza and strikes against Iran. The Paris Air Show organisers stated they are mediating to resolve the standoff.
Russian and Turkish presidents Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan condemned Israel's attack on Iran, calling it a violation of the UN Charter and international law. The two voiced deep concern over the growing Israeli-Iranian conflict, warning of long-term regional consequences, and urged an immediate ceasefire through diplomatic means. US President Donald Trump suggested that Iran is trying to de-escalate and is looking for talks. Speaking to reporters alongside Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney ahead of the G7 summit, Trump said he would not comment when asked what would it take for the US to get militarily involved in the Israeli-Iranian conflict.
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war, and they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
On the latest surrounding the conflict, we're talking with Maurice Hirs of the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with this. Just earlier, we've heard Netanyahu saying killing Iran's supreme leader would, quote, end the conflict. It was reported earlier that Trump rejected such a plan. Do you think Israel would listen to the US on this?
I think it's important to understand the roles of all of the leaders that have been eliminated by Israel during the operations that we've carried out. I think the supreme leader of Iran is a particularly destabilizing figure. He is the one driving this fundamentalist ideology, and he is the one who, as Prime Minister Netanyahu said, who his elimination could bring about a fundamental change. And that's what Israel is trying to do, bring about a fundamental change in the policy of Iran to try and persuade Iran, the Iranian leadership, to really give up on its idea of destroying Israel. Israel has no argument with the Iranian people, just with the Iranian leadership. And so the Iranian leadership must pay the price for what it's been provoking for all these years.
Do you not think that assassinating Ali Khamenei wouldn't be the reddest of lines for many in Iran?
Well, obviously, I think that there's a difficulty in drawing red lines for a fundamentalist regime that do not need any provocation, really, in order to attack Israel. Everything that they're saying now is just an excuse. It'll be the elimination of Ali Khamenei as an excuse to do what? To send hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting Israel's civilian population? Well, they've already done that on 3 different occasions. So it's difficult to talk in the terms of red lines. What we need to discuss is what would be the exact moves that would be needed in order to bring about the speediest resolution to this conflict, and really the defeat of the Iranian leadership. And again, not the Iranian people, not Iran, but a defeat of the Iranian leadership.
You've spoke on the ballistic missile attacks by Iran on Israel, but ahead of today's Israeli strikes on the Iranian capital, Israeli Defense Minister Katz said Tehran's residents will pay the price following the Iranian strikes on Tel Aviv, effectively threatening civilians. He later walked that back, but he did say it. What would you say anyone looking from outside in might think of that statement and that defense chief?
Well, I have to say that it was very positive that Defense Minister Katz rolled back that statement. It shouldn't have been written in the first place. and he was correct to make that clarification that we are not, as everyone has seen, as a result of the Iranian attacks on Israel, there have been 24 civilians murdered, 0 military personnel. On the other side, most of those killed have been Iranian senior military personnel, and the targets that have been attacked, not residential buildings that have been attacked with no military presence, as have been the source of the attacks in Israel by the Iranians. On the other hand, Israel has very strictly applied the rule of targeting military targets that have substantial value. And so I think it was good that, again, that Minister Katz rolled back that statement. And I would say again to the people of Tehran, if you do not live within the proximity to weapons producing factories where Israel warned them to stay clear, and you do not live in proximity to leaders of the Iranian regime, you have nothing to fear. We will not be targeting you.
But we've seen footage of residential buildings in Tehran burning. How would I know if my first neighbor is an IRGC commander or not? And to the point, you've mentioned 24 casualties in Israel, civilians. Iran says there are 224 casualties in Iran. But back to the matter at hand, Tehran has reportedly reached out for talks to end the hostilities and resume nuclear negotiations, which was then confirmed by Trump at the G7 in Canada. Now, with Natanz and Fordo being hit, top military brass, nuclear scientists killed, Israel declaring air superiority over Tehran. What else is left? Do you think Israel is prepared to cease the attacks?
I think what we need to do is not play again into the Iranian ploy. As has been said, the Iranians have never won a war, but they've never lost the negotiations. The quick call for a ceasefire now is just another one of those ploys. They are almost on their knees, and the job needs to be finished. Not negotiations in order to somehow save their nuclear capabilities and nuclear centers, but rather total destruction of those centers. They've had many, many years to hold those negotiations. As President Trump said, he gave them another 60 days, and all they did was waste time in the thought that there would never be any consequences.
Yes, but Israel does not have ordnance to hit the deep underground facilities. Does that mean Israel wants U.S. militarily involved to finish the objective?
I think there was a lot of discussion about what capabilities Israel had and didn't have prior to launching their preemptive strike. I think the preemptive strike and very much everything that we've seen since then has proved that Israel has capabilities sometimes beyond people's imagination. The fact that we had teams on the ground operating UAVs to neutralize ballistic missile launchers is something which I don't think the world would have expected, similar to the Beeper operation in Lebanon. I think there are many, many more surprises coming up for the Iranian regime, and they would do well to surrender as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you, Maurice, for joining us and sharing with us your insights.
Thank you very much, Fabian.
In other news, the manhunt for the gunman who killed a prominent Minnesota lawmaker and her husband and wounded another 2 people has come to an end. The suspect, Vance Bolter, was taken into custody on Sunday evening after a 2-day statewide search.
After a 2-day manhunt across Minnesota, police arrested Vance Bolter, a 57-year-old man accused of posing as a police officer before carrying out 2 politically targeted shootings. Former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were killed in their Brooklyn Park home early Saturday morning. Hours earlier, Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were attacked at their home in Champlin, 9 miles away. The Hoffmans survived. In a message shared by Senator Amy Klobuchar, Yvette Hoffman wrote that her husband took 9 bullets and she took 8. Authorities say Bolter altered a vehicle to resemble a police cruiser. Inside, a manifesto, a target list, and a tan cowboy hat believed to be his. A reward of $50,000 US had been offered for his capture. Local authorities praised the efforts of its officers, stating that there were more than 100 policemen involved in the search and they received more than 400 public tip-offs.
In global finance news, China's economy showed strain last month as factory output slowed to a 6-month low and property investment fell sharply, according to a new report. While retail sales improved, the country continues to face challenges.
China's economy is showing signs of strain, with official data revealing a slowdown in industrial output and deeper troubles in the property sector. That's according to the latest report from China's National Bureau of Statistics on Monday, which shows mixed economic data. The country's factory output growth hit a 6th-month low in May, while retail sales picked up steam, offering temporary relief for the world's second-largest economy.
In May, the value-added industrial output of large-scale enterprises nationwide increased by 5.8% year-on-year and 0.61% month-on-month.
However, it was the slowest growth since November last year. Within the property sector, investments plunged more than 10% and home sales shrank.
Real estate development investment declined by 10.7%. The total floor area of newly built commercial housing sold nationwide was 353.15 million square meters, a year-on-year decrease of 2.9%.
There's also growing pressure from abroad. US President Donald Trump said last week that a trade deal that restored a fragile truce in the US-China trade war was done, with Trump confirming a steep 55% tariff on Chinese exports.
In the next stage, there are still many external instabilities and uncertainties, which will place some pressure on China's foreign trade growth. However, China still has clear comprehensive advantages in foreign trade development, and the continued expansion of high-level opening up will support the steady development of foreign trade.
Beijing last month rolled out a package of stimulus measures, including interest rate cuts and a major liquidity injection aimed at shielding the economy from the hit from US tax hikes. However, analysts continue to flag challenges for China in hitting its growth target of roughly 5% this year, and warns an imminent stimulus was unlikely.
Since the Israeli-Iranian conflict broke out, Azerbaijan has stepped in as an evacuation hub of foreign nationals out of Iran via the Astara border crossing.
Tensions between Iran and Israel, which began escalating last Friday, have sparked a wave of evacuations as foreign nationals hurry to leave Iran through neighboring Azerbaijan. In response, Azerbaijan has acted quickly to ensure safe and orderly crossings, with the Astara checkpoint emerging as a vital transit point for evacuees. In the early morning hours of June 16th, groups of Russian citizens, including members of the Grand Symphony Orchestra, crossed safely into Azerbaijani territory. The orchestra members expressed their gratitude and announced a special concert at the Baku Philharmonic dedicated to their evacuation experience.
Добрый вечер, меня зовут Денис Калинский, я играю на виолончели в большом...
Good evening, my name is Denny Kalinsky. I play the cello in the Grand Symphony Orchestra of the BSOVR. The evacuation went, if I can put it this way, according to plan. We didn't face any major difficulties. Everything was very well organized. The team worked in a coordinated way, everyone maintained a mobilized attitude, you could say. Overall, everything went smoothly. All the services operated efficiently, everything was great.
Following them, American citizens were evacuated after the US Embassy urged its nationals to leave Iran via Azerbaijan.
I appreciate you doing this for us. As I said, the border is not usually open, so you've been an exception, and we very much appreciate it. There is very few options at this point, so yeah, it's a tough situation over there.
Shortly after, a total of 41 Azerbaijani citizens, including family members of embassy staff in Iran, were also evacuated across the Iran-Azerbaijan border. Citizens from Tajikistan and Belarus, as well as 28 Kyrgyz nationals, including the full staff and families of the Kyrgyz embassy in Tehran, have used Azerbaijan as a safe transit route. Most recently, groups of Belarusians, Spanish nationals, and another group of Russians completed their crossings through Azerbaijani borders.
Well, the full story is that we were there, we were visiting, and we had to get out. So this was a way to get out through Azerbaijan. And we're very happy, and thank you very much for having us here and letting us go through Azerbaijan.
Several foreign countries have appealed to the government of Azerbaijan for assistance in evacuating their citizens from Iran, requesting permission for transit through Azerbaijani territory en route to their home countries. Overall, hundreds of foreign nationals from these countries have safely evacuated Iran with Azerbaijan's support. The Azerbaijani government has made strong efforts to ensure the evacuation process runs smoothly, providing humanitarian aid and medical assistance along the way.
Members of Russia's Tchaikovsky Grand Symphony Orchestra, who were evacuated from Iran to Azerbaijan, held a special concert at the Baku Philharmonic. Following their crossing of the border yesterday, they announced the event as a symbol of gratitude.
The Azerbaijan State Academic Philharmonic Hall is hosting a concert by the Tchaikovsky Symphony Orchestra tonight. But behind the elegance of classical music, there is a story that touches on geopolitics. Just yesterday, the orchestra's full ensemble entered Azerbaijan, crossing the Iran-Azerbaijan border at a time when tensions between Iran and Israel are dangerously high. Regardless, the musicians are here, the instruments are tuned, and the show is about to begin, reminding us that even in times of conflict, music finds a way.
It was a notable evening at the Baku Philharmonic Hall, where classical music took centre stage. The Tchaikovsky Grand Symphony Orchestra delivered a carefully curated programme.
Many thanks to the Azerbaijani side. Thank you very much to everyone who was involved in our crossing of the borders and our subsequent flight to Moscow, and also to those who organised this concert, which we are now about to attend. So, we wish everyone good health, a wonderful mood, and we hope for more frequent meetings.
The atmosphere remained focused throughout, allowing the music to unfold in its full depth and detail, marking the night as a highlight in the city's cultural calendar.
The Iranian border is quite serious, but when we came to the side of Azerbaijan, we have, of course, been welcomed with tea, with candy, with love and care for us. So it was wonderful.
The evening offered a refined musical experience that highlighted the orchestra's technical expertise. It was a memorable night that celebrated the timeless beauty of classical compositions.
Armenia's economy minister said that companies are facing difficulties with both imports and exports to Iran and through its territory due to the conflict, adding that some Armenian shipments are stuck at the port of Bandar Abbas and on roads within Iran. He expressed hope for a swift restoration of peace. For a broader look at how the Iranian-Israeli conflict is perceived in the countries of the South Caucasus, we go to Tbilisi and our Nini Nikolaishvili.
The new active phase of the Iran-Israeli conflict, now on its fourth day, is raising increasingly serious concern across the South Caucasus. Though Georgia does not share a direct border with Iran, the crisis is unfolding just beyond its reach, and its impact could be felt much closer at home. Armenia, the country that has long maintained close and intimate ties with Tehran, condemned what it described as a unilateral Israeli act, warning that this new reality casts fragile regional stability into doubt. Azerbaijan, the strategic partner of Israel, and more recently the country that has made a significant progress in normalizing relations with Iran, with the recent visit of President Pezeshkian to Baku contributing to this, has expressed concern and called for the dialogue. The foreign minister of Azerbaijan emphasized that the country would never allow its territories to be used for attacks against any third country, including Iran. Georgia, just like its neighbors in the region, has maintained cautious and neutrality. Its foreign ministry has expressed serious concern while carefully refraining from taking sides. This reflects Georgia's foreign policy, a delicate balancing act between Western alignment, regional sensitivities, and ongoing security concerns. Yet only days ago, Georgia has appeared to quietly align with the West when it voted in favor of IAEA resolution condemning Iran's lack of cooperation with the nuclear inspectors. Although it did not make headlines in Tbilisi, it is believed to reveal a broader orientation, the one that is not entirely neutral. For present, no clear alliance structure governs this conflict. The countries in the region seem to agree that any renewed instability in the Middle East pose a direct threat to the security of the South Caucasus. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
To talk on the Iranian-Israeli conflict, we now go to Istanbul and Gökhan Gökçe, head of Turkey desk at TRT World. Gökhan, thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we delve into it, just a word of warning for our viewers. We will be showing some footage that some might find disturbing. Now, with that out of the way, Gökhan, following threats by the Israeli defense minister that the Iranian broadcaster was about to, quote, disappear, we saw the state TV being hit live on air. As a journalist, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, what can someone say as a journalist? I mean, those people, whatever they are, whoever they are, whatever their decisions, their thoughts, they're doing their job. They're journalists, and there's no way that this state broadcaster building is a threat to Israel's, I quote, an essential threat. That's what they call themselves. So it's totally nothing that can be understand. And you are showing those pictures, footage as well. Presenters, they are doing their news, and they are now being hit. This is totally not acceptable. This is something that should be what I'm trying to find the right word to describe what we have been seeing. So those people are journalists, and basically they are doing their job. And as I said, they don't have any threat against Israel. They are not a nuclear threat. They are not a nuclear power base. It's just a TV station, the national broadcaster of Iran. But I mean, when you look at how Israel decides in those situations, you shouldn't go back too far. I mean, when you go to Gaza, which has been accepted as a genocide by too many people, especially the public in Europe, in the States, all around the world, and also the nations, the states, the countries, some of them, especially in Europe, let's say Spain, in Ireland, and in the Nordic countries, they all say that what's going on in Gaza is an act of genocide. So please do keep in mind how many journalists have been killed by Israel forces, directly shot at. They are not casualties of war. They are being targeted directly. So this is what Israel does, actually, no matter if it's a journalist or if it's an aid worker. This is what they do, and this is totally unacceptable.
I must say Israel denies all allegations of purposefully targeting journalists and medical workers, aid workers, and so on. Now, to the figures and lives lost in this conflict, Iran says that at least 224 people were killed since Friday. Israel says 24 people have been killed in Israel. Now, we've heard Donald Trump confirming that Iran is looking to de-escalate. Do you see any de-escalation happening anytime soon?
Well, honestly speaking, I wish, but I don't foresee a de-escalation anytime soon. I mean, we're still, I'm sure you guys also receiving those lines over the wires that Tehran and Iran is still being targeted by the Israeli missiles and planes, and obviously the same goes for Israel. I mean, Iran is also attacking and sending missiles to Israel targets. So as far as the de-escalation is confirmed, it's really not going to happen very soon. Obviously, they will come to a point, but we don't know what is that point, that either both countries or one of them, presumably Iran, will say, okay, we need to stop this. But then again, please, let's keep in mind, we don't know the exact arsenal of Iran, how many missiles they have, which ones they've used, because allegedly they have hypersonic missiles that they haven't used yet, and they are saying, the Iranian side is saying that, I mean, I've seen a couple of lines a couple of minutes ago, they say that they are preparing a huge missile attack that no one has ever seen in the history of war. So we don't know if they're telling the truth, but I mean, as they are seeing this to continue, so does Israel. I mean, even you can, I mean, remember, we've seen lines that even Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has asked the US President Donald Trump to even assassinate the religious leader of Iran, and Donald Trump didn't get the go. But then again, today we are hearing from Mr. Netanyahu that the death of Khamenei will solve the problem. So this is how they behave, unfortunately, and this is
I'm sorry. Do you think Israel would go through with the planned assassination even without the green light from US?
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I'm saying this just to give an idea of how their mindset works. They've done this, you know, we've been through that. They've assassinated Hamas leader in Tehran, and also Hezbollah leader, and all those leaders that they see as a threat to themselves. So this is what Netanyahu has said, but according to the information we have from the Washington, D.C., from the Trump administration, that they didn't give the green light for that. But I mean, it could be that Netanyahu is also trying to put some pressure on Donald Trump again. I mean, this is one of the things that he may do. I've just seen his social media post a couple of minutes ago. I'm talking about Mr. Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister. He said that today Iran is targeting Tel Aviv, but tomorrow they could target New York. I mean, how do you put this narrative? How can you understand this narrative? I'm trying to understand, but all I can guess is that he is also trying to build a narrative that will probably push the Trump administration, maybe even go to a direct confrontation with the Iranian side, which the President Trump has declined so far.
When it comes to other major players, we've heard today Ankara and Moscow both condemning the Israeli attack on Iran as violating the UN Charter and called for an immediate ceasefire. Is there a role they can play here, or can anyone else be involved here?
Well, at least this is a series of diplomatic talks, diplomatic initiatives. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has spoken to US President Donald Trump twice in 2 days. He has also spoken with the Iranian president twice. And he has also, as you said, has spoken to the Russian President Vladimir Putin and all the regional leaders. He has been trying to at least do a shuttle phone diplomacy. Are we going to see something concrete so soon with all those diplomatic efforts? I have doubts about that, but at least this is a way that people in the region and some powers that are also a permanent, for instance, Russia is a permanent member of the UN Security Council. And we know that the French and the UK and the Spanish and the Canadian prime ministers will be having talks with the Iranian side. So as we see, there's this diplomatic efforts going on, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a direct talk. But to be honest, without the US, the Washington, the Trump administration saying, okay, it seems that it's not going to be coming to an end so soon. But at least we have, at least people have to try, at least to show that this new world order, which is a multipolar world order, is in some countries like Israel. That's my obviously that's my assessment. Israel is not being held accountable for whatever international law it breaks. It's not being held accountable. So at least for that, at least in the public opinions of the countries, those diplomatic efforts should continue. Whether it is going to end the conflict soon or not, whether it's going to take time, but the only way to finish this escalation, this conflict, is going to be on the table.
Gökhan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me.
And now we go to Astana, Kazakhstan, where our Fariza Kalimurzina was covering the bilateral talks of Chinese and Kazakh presidents Xi Jinping and Kassym-Jomart Tokayev ahead of the Central Asia-China summit.
From the moment President Xi entered Kazakh airspace, his plane was escorted by Kazakh fighter jets. He was welcomed in Astana by President Tokayev, an honor guard and children waving both nations' flags. The city had prepared in advance with enhanced security and national flags along main routes. During talks held at the Akoda Presidential Palace, President Tokayev stated that bilateral relations have entered a new golden era, contributing to the stable social and economic development of both nations. He emphasized the strong and resilient nature of Kazakhstan-China ties, noting they remain unaffected by global geopolitical challenges or shifting international dynamics. Tokayev also underlined that China does not impose political conditions within the framework of its cooperation with Kazakhstan. He highlighted the importance of nuclear energy collaboration, naming Chinese state-owned company CNNC as a trusted strategic partner in a planned nuclear power plant project. This marks President Xi's third visit to Kazakhstan since 2020, a clear indication of the country's special place in China's foreign policy. And since 2023, China has become Kazakhstan's largest trading partner, overtaking Russia. And last year, bilateral trade reached a record $44 billion. Several new business agreements are expected to be signed during the visit. Among them, a major industrial project by Chinese corporation East Hope Group, with investments exceeding $12 billion. The project includes the construction of an aluminium plant with a plant output of up to 1 million tons per year. Analysts say one of the key objectives of Xi's visit is to strengthen China's influence in Central Asia, especially amid growing tensions with the United States. According to Bloomberg, Xi's meeting with regional leaders in Astana is seen as a counterbalance to the G7 summit currently taking place in Canada. The visit sends a clear message. China is actively engaged in Central Asia and is ready to compete with the US for regional influence. Experts also point out that amid instability in the Middle East, China is increasingly interested in boosting oil imports from Kazakhstan. The visit comes as part of the China-Central Asia Summit, which will take place tomorrow here in Astana. The summit is expected to conclude with the signing of the Astana Declaration and the Treaty Eternal Friendship, Good Neighborliness and Cooperation. A total of 58 agreements valued at $24 billion are also set to be signed. Fariza Kalimurzina, AnewZ, in Astana, Kazakhstan.
And now for the details of the Central Asia-China summit itself, we go to Beijing and our Manur Magdoum.
Chinese President Xi Jinping is meeting with the leaders of Central Asian countries at a high-level summit in Kazakhstan as both sides seek deeper strategic cooperation amid the evolving geopolitical challenges. The high-level summit kicked off today and is scheduled to last until Wednesday. It will cover a broad agenda and will focus on enhancing cooperation in transport infrastructure, regional energy partnerships, and security governance. Analysts say that this gathering reflects China's emphasis on solidifying ties with its Western neighbors as part of the Belt and Road Initiative's next phase. The summit will also spotlight on joint efforts to advance digital economy and green transition, with Beijing likely to promote cross-border digital platforms and renewable energy integration. President Xi's visit reflects China's effort and intention to anchor itself firmly in Eurasia's strategic landscape. The meeting follows the recent regional tensions and are aimed at presenting a united front on regional stability and development-oriented multilateralism. Manu Maktoum, AnewZ, Beijing, China.
Moodys has maintained Uzbekistan's credit rating at Ba3, but upgraded the outlook from stable to positive. The upgrade reflects Uzbekistan's economic growth, a shrinking budget deficit, and low public debt compared to similar economies. A Ba3 rating means the country exhibits moderate risks, but shows promise. Moodys notes that if governance and institutional reforms are implemented effectively, Uzbekistan could see a rating upgrade. Uzbekistan officials call the move proof they're going in the right direction. Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching, and do stay tuned to AnewZ.